So welcome, Jos. It's so exciting to connect with you again. We were just having a quick chat before this, and it was 2016 that we met when I was the mindset coach for a lady that does retreats here on the Sunshine Coast, and you came all the way from Perth. And I remember we connected really well, and then you continued working with me afterwards. So tell us a little bit about where you were when we first met, what was going on for you.
Yes, so when we first met, I was definitely struggling with diagnosed depression, and I was on medication. I'd had a few unsuccessful attempts to get off it. One of my coping strategies was often to eat and drink as much as I wanted and all the bad foods. So I went to look for somewhere. I needed to get away from Perth. I needed to get away from my environment. So we did pick somewhere in Brisbane, but we picked the retreat specifically because it had an aspect of both weight loss, but more so because of the mindset work and the ability to work on both things.
Yeah, when we met, I did the sessions there, and I think we had an instant connection. And you're
yes,
because I've done Ironman, and that was what.
Yep. Yes, and I was well into my triathlons as well. But
I remember you were a very high achiever, and I've just done a podcast recently with a wonderful sports psychologist, and we were talking about all things high performance and some of the downsides of being a high performer. So I do remember that. Anyway, so that was when we first connected, and we did some work together. And tell me a little bit about what you gained from that, and what was going on then.
So I definitely think one of the biggest things that I learned through the mindset work was, one, it takes work. Just like doing a triathlon, just like, doing a diet, your mind doesn't just be perfect all the time, and you need tools, you need strategies to help when times are tough, because at the end of the day, life isn't smooth and life isn't always great, but you need processes and you need things that you can go back to when you're starting to struggle, so you can put them in place so you don't end up in a place that you feel like you can't get out of. And I still remember turning my thoughts into a little black ball and shooting them off into space. I still use that.
And we were talking earlier, like at the moment, it's the rock-on effect, I guess, from the last few challenging years, is that there are so many people struggling with levels of anxiety and stress, but it seems to have been labelled in this bucket of, we have a massive mental health problem. Now, we do. However, as we were saying, there are so many things that we can do to manage our mental well-being. And then, of course, there is the line when some people do need medication. However, they also need tools as well, as you did.
So, yeah, it was also an ability to reflect on why things were occurring and why I was getting into a pattern of, yes, I'd achieve these amazing things like in my triathlon, but then I'd always end up kind of crashing back down, or I would revert to, say, for example, eating poorly, which then affected my ability to do the things that were making me happy. Yeah, one of the core things to do was actually just to sort out my thoughts and to be allowed to have the bad thoughts, to be allowed to have my struggles, but to be able to process them in an effective way that meant that I could acknowledge them, but also keep going towards my goals rather than getting stuck
down. But tell us a few of the other great things that had happened for you.
I had been working in the canine unit with the police force, which I just absolutely love. I love dogs. I qualified for the half Ironman World Championships, which was amazing, and I did go and compete there. Unfortunately, I had a knee injury just prior, so whilst I did complete the race, I didn't actually get to fully race it, but I used another bit of fun, which was I just enjoyed it with my friend. I was then on my way. I was trying to qualify for the full Ironman World Championships to Kona. So they were kind of some of my biggest achievements at the time. Those were great achievements, but I did need more in my life, which I was able to start working towards after seeing you.
But the work that we did almost laid the foundations for other great things. And then I believe because you're in WA and I'm in Queensland, and you enjoyed the face-to-face. So it's after we finished working, I believe you met somebody that does similar work to me.
But he just reminded me so much of you and your work. And so when I decided life had gotten to a point where I was thinking, oh, I need to really nut this out again. I did go and connect with George and did very similar work to help me through that period of time. But it's now kept me going. And even though I've backed off from the high level triathlon stuff through some injuries and illness, I still have different goals, always that work in progress, I think you like to say as well, always that work in progress, and reverting to old tools is always helpful. Like I said, I always remember the black ball one. I love it because it really helps me just stop and think about what I'm doing.
But it's so great when I hear from clients and past clients who are still using them. I coach a few young athletes at the moment, and to be able to equip them with tools, especially like there's a couple in tennis, and it's such a lonely game out there. So to be able to equip them at an early age with tools that they can take with them through life, every aspect of life is just something that I think we really, really need today. So tell us, the other area that's been really big for you was what you've done recently, setting up an incredible charity, and then a little bit on the getting off the medication, because that's an interesting.
After doing the work with you, I did stop focusing on what was others expected of me. So what did others expect of me to do? And I knew that really I did love dogs. I love that work. I also loved organizing, which I did for a little while with a bit of dog training as well. But at each stage, when something has come up, there was never that issue of I move on to something else. When I lost mum, it really brought to the forefront, one, that I needed to do what I loved, because work is such a big part of our lives. But two, the power that dogs have. Little Jakey would come in and sit on her bed, and I'd take her for a walk in the wheelchair, and Jake would come, and he was really powerful to her positivity. But when she had the second stroke, even though she was unresponsive, we'd put Jake on the bed and she'd be able to tickle under his chin. She would still, her fingers would move. That was the only movement we got. And so what I did was I said, nah, back to dogs. And I did some training courses, worked at a rescue and a few different things, but we've set out canine companions. And what it is we pair people with a rescue dog, and through teaching them about how to bring a rescue dog through trauma and triggers and just the behaviors that those dogs are experiencing that have been a factor just of their experience of life, how can we help them? And those really align to what we have to do for ourselves, which is a lot of the time it's kindness, it's patience, and you need a range of tools and a range of experiences to find the right path. So and professionals like yourself, are there for us for our lives to keep working through and finding the tools that we need in the moment.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned kindness there. It's the number one challenge that many of my clients who are high performers, high achievers, are unkind to themselves. Now, I had to learn that myself one day. So I'm so glad you've learned that lesson. So I hope if anyone says, please show some kindness to yourself first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, isn't it great that you've come through so many struggles as well with, with some mental health issues as well. And now you're doing an amazing job and amazing work with the charity that you've set up to help other people, which is awesome. Yeah.
So I was medicated. I was put on antidepressant medication in 2009-ish. Mm-hmm. And especially prior to meeting yourself, I had always been told, well, yep, medication's going to help. And it did, to be honest. At the time, it helped me get out of that really low, hard point. I think earlier on, I hadn't learnt the right lessons I needed with my mindset. But I had often tried to go off it, and I actually ended up crashing, not because I was actually re-depressed, but because unfortunately the withdrawals create a big problem. For me, and this isn't the same for everyone, but the 4 to 6 week withdrawal was not long enough to allow my brain to reset itself to actually take on board the mindset work. However, since doing your work and continuing that work for the first time we're now looking at over 12 years on medication. I'm at the lowest dose that I've been on since I started, and I now have a proper plan to come off that medication completely, because that medication can be quite toxic. And I don't know, there's a lot of people out there. I had bad side effects from it. Yes, I knew I needed it at certain times, but I'm at a point now where I'm looking at not needing it. But doing a careful balance between making sure I do my mindset work, but also have a proper plan to come off it. And that plan is going to take 9 to 12 months to come off of quite a small dose in what's considered medically, but it's now being done correctly. And I'm not having the same issues I had previously trying to come off medication.
But interestingly, you mentioned that you found an amazing doctor in England who has great expertise.
But he is an Aussie.
Oh, he's an Aussie.
He is an Aussie. And actually, I think his work, by pure chance, when I found him, his work was published in a WA newspaper. Cool. But again, even he says, sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't, and sometimes you need a plan to figure out when and you don't need it and when you do. So,
but if you look back to before we met and even when we met, would you ever envisage that your life would be as it is now?
Definitely not. I was struggling to think I would ever meet someone who could put up with me. No. But ever someone I could truly connect with. I never expected to throw in, kind of chasing, I guess, promotion or the financial incentive of certain roles to throw my hat in and go, you know what, I need to be happy. Is more important. And yes, I understand money always plays a role. You have to survive and you have to live. And unfortunately, money is part of that. But I'm doing it in a way that I can do both. Also, the big changes, I think when we met, I was like, no, I have to go to Kona to be happy. And I have to achieve to be happy. What I've learned is an achievement and a goal can certainly make me happy. But I've switched it in that the goal can come when it's ready. Now my goal is much smaller. I just did the HBF run for a reason yesterday. Wow. I am so very sore today, but it was not to race it. It was there to literally, my best friend did it with me. And if we couldn't talk, we were going too fast. We would walk, we would chat to people, we would encourage other people. And the goal was literally just to do something together. If I'd gone into that race like I had previously done, where every race was to win, was to place, was to do a personal best, I would be miserable, because it's not realistic to do that all the time. And we sit down and we go, where do we need to be right now for what we can do? And I think that's what I learned from you, bigger than anything.
It was so competitive then, and now it's almost like this is what interior work does. It allows intrinsically find happiness or peace or calm from within, rather than having to achieve and accomplish, which ultimately just feels a bit more stress and pressure on ourselves. And now just give us again the website of your charity is www.k9companions.org.au, and you're on Instagram with K9 Companions Oz. Is that right?
That's correct. So the website is primarily for people interested in joining the program and to donate. Obviously, we need funds to keep ourselves running. And our Facebook and our Instagram actually puts up just little tidbits. So whether you have a dog, don't have a dog, love dog, it can be a nice way just to have a laugh and a chuckle, and to, like we just said, learn to be a bit kind to yourself and be patient.
And ultimately, part of the charity is to connect people with animals. For the benefit of them, companionship, mental health, and
exactly, and we help them through that, and use the parallels to help promote your own mental well-being.
I work with a lot of recovering perfectionists too, so you are
that's what I am. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I remember you've got so much expertise and wisdom and life experience that you can now put into this charity and help other people, which is so important. So I'll make sure that I share the links below. And if anyone out there loves dogs, and there's a lot of dog lovers, then I can encourage you to donate and help Jos on her great mission.
We've done about 5 or 6 pairings. And we're actually in the process of building up to, we're going to hold a night over here for veterans. So we'll have our next big group through then. And we've got a few teed up for actually August, just because of timing of when it would be good for people to get a rescue dog. And this is where, again, in your own life, you need to acknowledge it. Sometimes you got to wait for things. Sometimes you got to battle through the mud.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. And you're in Perth. So if there's anyone watching that is in Perth, they can either find you or via me. We can get them in touch. So
we do plan on having a capability to do it remotely. So that will be very much individual dependent. So
lastly, or second lastly, because I've got one more question. If somebody is struggling a bit in their life, what would you say about, because it's always the hardest step, isn't it? Reaching out to somebody and asking for help. What would you say?
Is. So the first thing is you're allowed to struggle, because that is life. And Mandy's talked about that I've gone through a lot of challenges. I know I'm going to have more. So one, it's okay. But having a network around you, even if you're not someone who likes to talk, it doesn't have to be a huge network. And keep exploring, because the first thing you try might not work. I certainly don't think I connected with someone until I met yourself, Mandy. And I had been to several psychologists. They just weren't the right fit. But it doesn't mean you're not succeeding. It just means that we haven't found the right answer yet.
Yeah, and that's so important, to find the right person. But you need that person that you connect with them. It's Definitely. One reason I always have a chat with somebody, no obligation, because we need to be a good fit, both of us. So finally, any last words of wisdom? And then tell us, have you got a date when you're getting married?
Words of wisdom is it definitely, and they're not mine, but it is, we are always a work in progress. And 16th of November 2024.
Okay, yeah.
Because we didn't want to overload ourselves this year with again, the date was chosen out of having a look and making sure that we were going to have a wonderful wedding. At a gin distillery as well, being our favorite drink. I'm
so thrilled that you've come through so many challenges in your life. You've obviously gained so much knowledge and insight and wisdom, and it's just heartwarming that you're able to share this and to have been a small part of your journey. But I think finally, I just want to impress on people that you can change. I mean, as you said, you were on medication before we ever met. You've found a way to come off it. You've changed everything in your life. You've let go of a lot of the pressures, the stresses, the patterns. You're happy, you look it, you're living your passion. It is possible. And I think my philosophy is never, ever, ever quit on yourself. And when you have that philosophy, there's always a solution. But keep looking and keep believing in yourself. At the moment, I think we need just what you're doing. Change starts with the individual from the inside out. And that is our greatest gift to the world, the ripple effect we can have by working on ourselves. So thank you so much. It was lovely to reconnect again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.